Get down, the Toad.
He's dead! He's totally dead!
Hello and welcome to Nintendo Everything. My name is Eric Zarch, and who am I joined by today?
It's Oni Dino.
Hello, Oni. How has your week been?
Week has been pretty crazy, but I did get a lot of gaming in, so it's a plus. How about you?
Well, that sounds really good. I kind of did the opposite. I almost got like zero gaming in. But we'll get into that in a second because we've got a bunch of improv questions that we didn't go over last week because, well, the episode ended up going for ages. So I thought we'd better kind of not put them in that episode and throw them at the start of this one. So we've got a follow-up to the improv questions for last week. We've got another 10 to go. And I don't know who's going to go first. Did you or me want to go first this week?
We should do it the opposite of last week. Last week, you asked first, didn't you?
That's right, yeah.
Did you? I don't remember. Okay, I'll ask first. Whatever happened last week is in the past. I will ask first.
All right, you ask first. I am ready as I'll never be, and we'll see how we go.
Yes. I can't wait. Okay. Ready. Question number 1. Dragons or dinosaurs?
True.
What?
Wait. Let me explain this. Dragons are dinosaurs.
Oh, no. You misheard me. It's my terrible American accent, clearly. Dragons or dinosaurs. Which do you prefer?
Dragons or dinosaurs. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was thinking RPG terms, dragons are totally dinosaurs. In the real world, dragons or dinosaurs, dragons.
Okay.
God, dinosaurs are so boring. Dinosaurs are like when I was 2 years old, that's what I was into, but I was going about that.
You are never too old to be into dinosaurs, I'll tell you that, though. That's why it's a difficult question, or it should be at least. So, okay, yeah. Question number 2. What's the ugliest video game console you've owned?
Oh, wow. This is a really tough question for me because like I own mostly Nintendo systems until like kind of the later generations. This is going to suck because I'm going to have to choose a console that I love and I'm going to have to say the...
Well, it's not just Nintendo. It can be anything.
Yeah.
Any video game console you owned.
So like... Here's the thing, like I'd probably throw the Dreamcast up there, but I never owned the Dreamcast because that controller got ugly.
Yes, it was.
I never. There's so many ugly consoles that I never owned that I'm gonna have to say the Game Boy, the original Game Boy.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I didn't even own the original DS. Like I didn't get it to the DS Lite, so I can't even throw that under the bus.
Oh, okay. I would say that the original Game Boy is uglier than the original DS, even though the original DS was a bit,
Well, that makes me feel better.
Good answer. Number 3. What country would you want to take your next holiday in?
Oh, good question. Japan. I'd love to go to Japan. Like, the birthplace of video gaming it'd be my favorite place to go in the world.
Ah, very nice. Have you never been?
No, I've okay. Depressing. I've never actually left Australia. I've never flown off these shores. I've been girt by sea my whole life. So,
not that depressing. It's okay.
No. I need to get on a holiday. It's something I need to do, but
you deserve it. You deserve it. Okay, next question. If you were to start humming or whistling a video game tune as you go about your day, what would it be?
Oh, the battle end of the battle scene for Final Fantasy that always gets stuck in my head. You know the anyway that really gets into my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Oh yeah. Next question. Favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory? Oh, wow. It would be playing through Tales of Symphonia, and we're probably getting that game in the first place because, long story short, I won't go into it, but that was the first game that I bought with my own money. And so, like, I saved up and I traded in a couple games I had at the same time, and I went to the store and bought that game. And out of nowhere, like I wasn't expecting to buy it. I just kind of went in there and found that game on the shelf and fell in love. And it became like my favorite game for the next 10 years.
Very cool. That's a really good memory. And also that game had great box art. So, well, if the box art was the same in Australia that I'm thinking of in the States, yeah, that's a good choice.
It probably was, yeah.
All right, number 6. If Mario and Luigi are brothers, what the hell are Wario and Waluigi?
As far as Nintendo's canon goes, I think it's something like cousins or something. There's some sort of weird kind of distant thing going on there, but like in my head, they're definitely brothers as well. They've got to be.
Maybe we'll figure this out in the future. I would love to see a video game of Wario, like the Super Wario Brothers, that kind of thing. Except it doesn't have to be called brothers. I want to know more about those two. You know?
I know. Why do we not know more about those two? Like, why do we have so many games that involve them, and yet, like, we know nothing about them? Show us less of Piranha Plant and more on these two.
Well, I don't know about less about Piranha Plant, but yeah. Where the hell? Okay, next. How do you feel about socks with sandals?
Oh, just horrible.
Yes!
Absolutely horrible.
Good, that's the correct answer.
If that's not one of like the greatest sins, I don't know what is. Socks and sandals is just, it's not a good look. It's not even a good feeling, like having that bit of fabric between your feet with the sandals on. It all feels wrong. It looks wrong. It's all of my business, and it shouldn't be.
Exactly. It's hugely popular in Japan right now. I can't stand it. I hate it.
It's not, is it? Oh
Yes,
my god.
it is. It's horrible. Like bright white, like bleached socks with black strapped sandals. It's hideous. Like it's for like the modern working daimyo, if you know what a daimyo is. Oh, that was a nerd joke for history buffs only.
That definitely was. Also, how do you feel about socks and thongs?
Terrible. And also, I'm pretty sure when you say thongs, you mean like the sandals thongs. Yes.
Yes. I don't know what else is going on, but no, Australians call thongs the things that go on your feet. So,
my mother calls it that too, and she's very Midwestern. Okay, next question. What's your personal headcanon for why Princess Toadstool changed her name to Peach?
Oh, okay. She changed her name to Peach because she's not actually the same character that you knew back then. The character that was Princess Toadstool was actually captured by Bowser. She was taken away, kidnapped, and then Mario's failed. You know how you have the Zelda timeline, and you have that failed attempt in the Zelda timeline to actually rescue or to save the timeline. This is the other timeline that we're actually in, and we don't know about it yet. We're still finding out. Nintendo hasn't released the Mario Historia where Princess Toadstool was captured, and we're in the Dark Timeline now, where Peach is the new successor.
Oh my god, that's perfect. Does that mean that is how Bowsette came to be?
Exactly. I'm not going to go deep into it now, but like that, this is a long-running history, and this is how Bowsette kind of came into the game, and how Toadette actually turns into Peach and into Toadette and or Peachette. There's a big history here that we really don't have time to get into, but there's a lot of deep lore here.
I'm writing fan fiction as I speak. Next question. If you could hang out with any jobber enemy in a Nintendo game, who would it be and why?
Any what enemy?
Jobber, like a very low-ranking enemy, like Goombas or Koopa Troopa or something like that. But any Nintendo game, doesn't have to be Mario only. Okay,
no, I'm definitely going to go with Mario because like my favorite kind of characters are the kind of partners that you get in the Mario RPG games. I think, yeah, so hanging out with one of them would be really cool. I'm kind of leaning towards Koops from Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. He seemed like a pretty cool cat, so I reckon I'd go with that.
He's like, I mean, I'm not saying no to that, but like he's a bit of a loser, right? Like a lovable loser.
Yeah, he's a lovable. So I can relate to him. I think that's why I would like to hang out with him. I'm just like, I'm that lovable loser, that guy, who's a bit of a coward, and yeah, I think we'd have a lot in common.
You could sit together and not play horror video games.
Exactly.
That's a callback. And finally, last question. If you could have one waifu and one husbando from any Nintendo property, who would it be?
Waifu from Nintendo property. God.
There's a lot to choose from.
Okay.
I was going to narrow it down and say Fire Emblem, but I think every Nintendo property should be good.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just go with Peachette. I don't know. That she seems like a nice lass. And for what was the other one? The Manfu? Is that what you call it?
Not Manfu, but I do love that word. I said husbando.
Oh, husbando. Okay,
Yes.
That's better. Husbando. My husbando would have to be Waluigi. He's just so cool and weird, and again, I can relate to him.
Great choices. Ta-da!
All right, well that's your 10. I'm glad that we didn't have any questions about mayonnaise this week.
You may have redeemed yourself. Your Peach fanfiction or Toadstool fanfiction was a big hit with me, at least.
that was definitely my favorite. I think we should probably get into your 10 now, so I can put you on the spot and we can forget about my embarrassments.
My body is ready.
Okay, question number 1. Remove 3 God, that was question number 10 from last week.
Oh.
Let's go on to the actual question number 1. It's blind date night, and the form asks you, what console do you share the most in common with, and why? What do you write?
Wow. Gosh, I would have to say a console. The Super Nintendo, I want to say. Not just because I shared some of my most strong gaming moments with it as a kid, but like, I don't know, I want to go into like self-deprecating territory and be like, it wasn't as popular as like the things that came before it. Then there was a redesign and people were like, this is like not necessary. And I'm like in my redesign phase of my life, and people are like, you are not necessary. I want to go there. Yeah.
So you're basically saying that at some point in your life, you kind of redesign your life and came back, and you were just better. You were the 16-bit version of Oni.
Yeah. Like, I like my redesign, but other people like maybe aren't feeling it, and I'm like, that's okay. I'll just be a Hot Mess Express over here. That's fine.
Okay, I'm down with that. I can dig that. Question number 2: say something negative about your favorite game.
So my favorite game is probably Chrono Trigger.
I know, I love this question because everyone has a favorite game and no one wants to say anything negative about it, but you've got to have something bad to say about it. It doesn't have to be like, destroy the game, just something bad about it, something that's like, oh my god, this part peeved me off, or anything.
Yeah. So like, I want to say the cop out of like, there's no like true sequel, but I'm not going to be that guy. So I want to say that like, maybe it's too easy or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
Like,
I can dig that.
Yeah, too easy.
Next question. You won a competition. Your prize is to make one change, big or small, to the next Pokemon game. What do you change? So Pokemon 2019.
Oh, also, speaking of this kind of thing, in the future, we definitely, did I mention this last week? I want to have like a prediction cast for Pokemon 2019 some in the future, because I got lots of ideas.
We do have to do this.
Yeah, I want to do that.
Definitely.
Okay. One change. So, damn, this is hard. This is supposed to be improv style, so like I want to be able to like run around on the map, sort of like Breath of the Wild style, but not as big of a map, and be able to run around during a battle too. Like, I still want battles to be turn based, but I want to be able to run around and like just see things from every view point possible, like third person behind the camera behind the character camera. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, you don't want the camera to be fixed in the same place the whole time. Then you're kind of running around in a very it's a little bit open, but it's like in the current ones, but it's still very linear. So like, open that up a little bit more. Yeah,
and like, you only said one. Okay, we're gonna have to get into this in the future cast that we're gonna have on this. But yeah, I got lots of ideas, lots.
All right, next question. Say something negative about your. I've got to like, the problem I'm throwing completely out with the numbers ever since number 1. We're already up to like some, I don't know, weird number here. Anyway, the next question. when given the chance, are you the good or evil protagonist in games?
Probably I am the good one. As interested as I am by like the evil ones and everything, I don't do evil. I'm not like an evil person. I'm chaotic, but not evil.
Have you played Fable before?
A little bit. My friend really tried to get me into it, and it just wasn't the right time when he tried to get me to play it. So like, I need to play that game. But I'm definitely like chaotic good, maybe chaotic neutral, but chaotic good, I think, is what I am. Okay.
What game or series needs a gritty reboot?
Gritty reboots? Usually I'm not a fan of like most of these, but
it's such like a 2010 question, when everything needed a gritty reboot.
Everything was a friggin' cover shooter and gritty and reboots and yeah. All right, let's see. What could be a gritty? You know what could be a friggin' gritty reboot and a third-person cover shooter? That stupid game that was on the Super Nintendo that used the Super Scope where you rode on Yoshi's back and you like
Yoshi Safari.
Yoshi Safari, is that what it's called? Yeah, so give that a gritty reboot. And like, just Yoshi's dying left and right, like in a friggin' war massacre, and Mario is just like, we have to save Peach because she's getting experimented on. She's turned into a bioorganic monster because Bowser is doing all this crazy stuff, bunch of stuff I can't say on the podcast.
I love that idea. Get the down, Toad.
Exactly. Yeah.
That sounds really awesome. I'd love to play the. I really enjoyed that the original actually back in the day. It was like one of my most played games. I don't know why. I
No
owned a
way.
Super Scope in the first place and that game, but like I played that so much on the SNES.
Wow, crazy. I rented it once from a rental store, and I didn't have a super scope or anything. It didn't say anything about that when I rented it, and so I just couldn't move or anything. And I was like, I want to play this game. It's on my TV right now. But
I
yeah.
think I did the same thing, but like, and then like I got one and my Super Scope was broken, so it wouldn't work. And so,
Ah.
and like I think every now and then like I would forget and I'd go to plug the game in, and it's like, oh, that's right, I have a broken Super Scope. I can't actually play this game.
That's right, despair and sadness. But yeah, I would like to see a
All right.
gritty reboot of that game. I want to see like Toads on the battleground and just being like,
Oh my god!
you know,
He's dead! He's totally dead!
that kind of thing.
Fireballs and bullet bills going off everywhere. I want to see that as well, actually, now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. The GameCube had what Nat calls the GameCube bum, which I don't think anyone else calls it that, but she does. Which basically is a thing that goes in the bottom and it plays Game Boy Advance games. What would you like? I know.
Sorry, that's it. That's
such a
awesome.
stupid
I thought you
name.
said bomb at first, like ba-bomb bomb.
Oh,
You
okay.
said
No,
bum
no.
in
Bum.
the cute little Australian accent.
The GameCube bum. What would you like to? What would you like the Switch bum to play?
Yeah, switch bum. Sorry, I can't get over bums. Constantly thinking about it all the time. Well, I couldn't play like DS or 3DS or something like that. I'd have to go older. I have to go retro. Gosh, I guess I want to say GameCube because everybody's craving that medium to be emulated or re-released or whatever. A lot of people who are in their like I think early 20s, they grew up with the GameCube kind of thing, so it's just very popular and very big on the internet. So I want to say GameCube. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be so cool. Get like a little mini disc player on your Switch. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, what console had the best library of games?
Oh, best library of games. Man, I have to say Super Nintendo. Oh, well, wait. Not just Nintendo games, right?
Yeah, not just Nintendo.
So Super Nintendo for the Nintendo for sure. This is copying it out. But then I want to say maybe the PS2 had the best. Maybe.
Ooh, them fighting words.
I know. Like I love the PlayStation and the PlayStation 2 so much. But at the same time, during that not only era but like generation of gaming, there wasn't a whole lot of like platformers and like action platformers like we're seeing right now, and I love that genre of game. So that's a hard choice for me, but I'm just gonna go back to Super Nintendo. I'm just gonna say that.
Okay. A video game soundtrack is now the sound. This is very similar to your question. It's now the soundtrack to your life. What one is it?
I want to say maybe the Super Mario Bros. 2 theme. I'm talking Super Mario Bros. 2, the Western version that we got, which they call USA in Japan, which I think is actually kind of jingoist because it released in other territories too. Anyway, the one where like you're on the character start screen and it's like da 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 that song.
Yes, I'm all there for that. Okay,
Yeah.
I know what you're talking. Was that the one that was originally Doki Doki Panic or something like that?
Yeah, it was originally Doki Doki Panic, made by Miyamoto. I don't know if he made it or whatever. He was involved in the development, and then they reskinned it and changed a couple of things to make it into a Mario game for the United States and wherever else it released.
Okay, last question. You have been chosen to decide the future of gaming. From this point on, only sequels to current games will be made, or only new IP. Which one is it?
So I've been chosen to stifle creativity. That's what I've been chosen to do. Good God.
Yeah. I don't know who put this decision over people and why they chose you to decide this, but it's horrible.
Yeah. Miss me with that. Jesus. I guess if I had to choose between two horrible things that you just gave me, this question makes me mad. I would say new IP just because it fosters more creativity, and then it takes away that horrible culture that we currently have with any creative medium, where not any, but most, where people are constantly creating setups and established universes and stuff like that. And it's too overwhelming. It's too much. It's like, knock it off.
I think I'd go the same. I think you chose the right answer there.
Yeah.
All right, well, ta-da, that's my 10 questions all done.
Yay! Patch, 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 patch.
Anyway, I think it's probably about time that we moved into our adventure log and talked about basically what you've been playing this week. Because again, I just had such a flat-out week with so much going on that I'll get into it at some stage. But I want to talk about what you've been playing, and which kind of coincides with, like, last night I said, Oni, what have you been playing? You gave me the list, and I said, all right, I haven't played anything. I'm going to play an hour of one of these games so that we can kind of talk on it a little bit more than just you. So why don't I just stop stalling for time and ask you what you've been playing?
All right, let's do it. So my adventure log for this week is filled with quite a bit, especially compared to last week. Played a little more of Worlds of Final Fantasy Maxima, which I do like. I do still like this game, but I have some issues with it that I do want to talk about. And since I'm going to be talking about the issues, I do want to preface this with saying that this is not a bad game. Not a bad game. Still recommend it. Solid JRPG turn battle system with monster catching, good level progression, and all that junk. My biggest problem with it at the moment, because I'm at the very end, is the story and the pacing. Like, not that there isn't enough story or something. There's actually like a well-balanced amount of it for like an insulated game like this within a universe of like established characters and locations and just junk that doesn't make sense. But it's they set up some like really interesting things in the very beginning, and like your two main characters are twins who have amnesia, which is a super overused trope, but it's right. But it doesn't bother me too much because of it being like sort of a spin-off game like this, and it puts the player of the game in the main character's shoes. So, you know, whatever to that, doesn't bother me that much. But what they do set up that is interesting is the villains and stuff, and like the world being just kind of weird, and it's really well done. But then right after like that, I don't know, I want to say it's the second major town that you visit, the story just kind of disappears, and it disappears for a long time, like the entire middle of the game. To the point where I was like going through town and dungeon and dungeon, and I was like, what is happening? Like, I'm getting keys, but for why? What happened to all the stuff that they set up in the beginning? And now I'm nearing the end, like chapter 19 or 21, and suddenly there's like this huge dump of story, and then like this twist, and I was like, I stopped caring.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but like, does it feel like? Cause I'm finding it hard to remember the exact story. Did it feel like they had an idea for a story, but then they had to fit all these characters for you to meet in the middle, and so they kind of loaded this story at the start, and then thought, oh well, let's go weak in the middle here, so we can just start like loading through all the characters. That, you know, here's all the characters you want to meet through the Final Fantasy series, and then at the back end they're like, all right, here's the dump of the rest of the story. Yeah,
that's pretty accurate, because so you're meeting all of these like Final Fantasy characters as references, and as it seems like small little bits of like just little bonuses throughout the story. And I didn't know that this actually was going to play into the story, because they weren't really setting it up that well for it, in my opinion. So like you're just constantly being bombarded with like reference after reference, and like, oh hey, remember the Final Fantasy VII Mako reactor? Remember the Figaro Castle from Final Fantasy VI? Remember Yuna and Titus from Final Fantasy X, and all that stuff? And it just kind of it felt a bit like pandering, because it was so badly paced, in my opinion. It should have been better paced to not bombard you with either of those things, like the big character dump in the middle and then the big story dump at the end. But on the big story dump at the end, what I'm talking about is that like there was like I want to say like 45 minutes total of like just pure exposition and story, where like it'd be a 10-minute cutscene, you walk from one place to another place, then there's another 10-minute cutscene, rinse and repeat, that kind of thing. And I was just like, oh my god, do I quit this game? I'm at the end though. At the end though, so I didn't know. I didn't know how I felt about all that. And
Yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from. I do want to quickly touch on one other thing you said, the
sure.
amnesia part of it, and like I would love to write about this one day because it's a thing that you see it in a lot of games, you see a lot of people chat about it, but it's also it almost there's a reason that it comes up so often, and that's because it makes sense as someone playing the game.
Right,
Because you
right.
going into the game, you're almost that character with amnesia, and for you to relate to the character, if the character knows everything that's going on before you do, they need a way to set up each character so that to describe the story and describe it to you so that you know what's going on, but then it almost feels silly when you like everything's getting to describe to the character who already knows about the world. So that's why a lot of the times you see like adventures where people will either jump into a world where they know nothing about, or we'll see amnesia or something like that, because it helps then the NPCs and the characters, especially around RPGs, have to explain the game to the character so the character so that you understand what's going on as well. It's not just explaining to the character. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly jump into that because it's a trope that we see a lot, but it does make sense in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. That's sort of like the double-edged sword of it, though, because for me, like I can just read a story or book or whatever where I don't have to relate to these characters. I just have to know who the characters are and what's going on. So it doesn't have to be like that, but it's just a different way of telling a story. It just depends on which way you want to go with it. So I'm totally cool with it, but I just wish that the amnesia trope weren't so overused. But I mean, like I said, this is a bit of a spin-off game. It's sort of like its own thing, so I'm fine with it in this regard. So that's actually a very, very minor complaint, if it even is a complaint at all. It's mostly just that big story dump at the end where I'm like, what is going on? Where are we? And who is this Bayonetta villain out of nowhere? What is happening?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wish that like that same stuff would have happened, but like maybe 70-ish% of the way through, as opposed to like 90% of the way through. It needs to be paced better, but it's fine. It's okay. And I'm going to finish it and I'll see how I feel and I'll tell you about it next week.
Cool.
Yeah. So in addition to that game, I also played a bit of Dead Cells. I don't know why I just suddenly turned it on. I bought it a while ago and I just finally started it up. And I don't have much to say about that game that hasn't been said already. But it's fantastic. It's absolutely mesmerizing and addictive, and it's really, really tough, of course, all those things that people have been saying. But I did want to point out that how it is very good at making you feel like you are making hard progress, even when you're dying and losing your equipment and stuff and starting over. Because there are some like permanent buffs and skills that you learn which unlock new areas and paths to explore, not only in future stuff but in levels that you've already been through. So this gives you the ability to choose between like two options or so of like which level you want to go to next, and like finding a secret in a level before, even though like some areas are well, I shouldn't say some, the majority of areas are procedurally generated. So that's a really great feeling. That way you don't feel like it's a slog. And it's great. I'm not good at it. I keep dying all the time. I can't get past boss 3. But I'll probably pick it back up in the future and play some more and look up some tips on YouTube and junk and see where that takes me.
I'm going to have to write some tips for you then. No,
please do.
I won't be writing any tips. No. I've only just passed the first boss. I'm terrible at the game. I wish I could write tips, but I'm not very good at it. But it's interesting that you've made it up to... You said you made it to the third boss so far? Or
Yeah,
you haven't beat him?
I have not beat him. He's so hard. And like it takes forever to get to him that it's like... It's hard to like learn his patterns and stuff because you come in with a new loadout every single time, and especially as you go further and further into the game, because then you have more options and there's more loot drops and stuff, so you can change your stuff more often. So it's hard. It's super hard. And there's probably like a whole bunch of like even more awesome stuff that's like past that and even deeper into the game that like a whole bunch of people probably are not going to experience because it's a hard game.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with that boat. To me, I always compare this game to the game that I talked about the other week, Rogue Legacy, because they're so kind of similar in premise. Like the fact that you go into a randomly generated dungeon or whatever, and then have to make it as far as possible and try to defeat the bosses, and then eventually you're obviously going to die, and you go back out and you keep some sort of progression kind of going. And I feel like there's bits and bobs that each game does better than the other. I love the way that Dead Cells handles its level generation. and the way that it kind of unlocks pathways, like you said, to kind of continue going. So like eventually you get a vine that you can climb up and spawn, so that you can get a shortcut to go a different way. I like the way that it does that, and I like the way that the levels are generated to say that, like, if I go into the second town-like area, it's always just going to be running from left to right, and running in a straight line across there will get me across the map. And there's little bits that kind of drop down that will go into other areas if I choose to. And then there's some vertical ones, and there's some that, like, north will always go somewhere and south will go somewhere else. So you can kind of start to predict where, like, you never know exactly where you're going to end up, but you can kind of predict what's going to be each way, and get a better idea from that. And so, like, it's better generated than that way than the other one that I talked about, Rogue Legacy, which is just a big keep. There's always one area in the middle and there's 3 around the outside, and that kind of never changes. The one benefit to having it the Rogue Legacy way, though, is that what you mentioned with the bosses. Now, if I ever wanted to take on a boss, I could always just kind of go straight for it, so I could grind that boss and start to understand it. Now, I feel like with Dead Cells, I continued, like you said, it's such a long way. Like, even with the first boss, because that's all that I've done so far, it's such a long way to get to that first boss every time that I felt so punished every time I died to it, because I didn't get a chance to learn it as much as I'd like to.
Yeah. I think bosses are, for the people at home, bosses are like 2 or 3 levels deep. So like every 2 or 3 levels, there's a boss. Then 2 or 3 levels, then a boss, like that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, like, all I know is so far is the first one, and I believe that it's like there's at least 3 levels there before you would get to the boss. And like, depending, obviously you can actually do it really fast, and that's the thing that you're encouraged to run really fast through these levels. But the rewards for doing so, which I really like about the game, and the game, it feels good being fast paced. Like, when you kill enemies, you can get the speed bonus, and you feel really powerful for actually destroying enemies and being really good at the game. But then obviously there's a higher risk with that as well. So it kind of goes both ways. But I criticize the bosses, but they're not, like, it's not like they're badly designed. The bosses are actually really good in the way that the start of the fight, like, especially, like, again, all I know is the first one, but the start of the fight starts off really slowly, and it gives you a chance to learn the boss before it does speed up to the end, where it's just, like, insane and he's just jumping around all over the place and trying to destroy you. So, like, it's good in that way that it does, like, give you that chance to kind of learn it, but it just still feels a little bit punishing, especially if you've just had a bad run and you get to him with nothing good. You're like, oh, it's already over at this stage.
Yeah. You touched on something that I didn't mention. The game does a fantastic job of making you feel really good with all of your movements and stuff. Like, just moving around feels great. You feel very agile and you feel very in control of all of your movements. So that way, like, when you die, because of course you're dying a lot, you never feel like, oh, that was completely unfair kind of thing. I don't think I've ever felt that way. It just felt like I was always in control. Game's great. Yeah,
same here. Yeah, like, whenever I died, I always felt I just ran into an impossible situation. Like, I surrounded myself with too many enemies, or I just simply missed my timing and things like that. You're right about not feeling like, I'm not being angry at the game for dying, because I'd, like, as much as I'm frustrated with myself, I'm never angry with the game about it.
Yeah. Okay, so in addition to Dead Cells, I played Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. And this was a great little experience. It was, I want to say maybe I played it front to back for 3 hours, maybe a little bit less. And that was after, like, dying and taking my time, as I usually do with video games in general. I loved this game. It is my biggest thing that I loved about it is that it's a perfect blend of being mostly retro with some extra benefits in the, like, technical department. So, like, at first glance of looking at the game, you might think, oh, this could totally be on the NES. But if you look closer, or if you're knowledgeable about, like, NES graphic capabilities, then you can tell it's a modern game imitating NES visuals. And it just strikes that perfect blend for me, visually and aesthetically. To draw a comparison, something like Shovel Knight is certainly inspired by NES era things, but it does not look NES-like, to me at least, because it doesn't adhere to a lot of the visual limitations of the NES, which is totally fine. That's just a aesthetic choice, and there's no judgment there. I love the hell out of Shovel Knight. I can't wait for the new DLC to drop sometime next year. I think early next year is when it's coming out. But anyway, Curse of the Moon very smartly uses the visual limitations present in the NES to its artistic advantage. like then they sort of like color out of the lines, if that color outside of the lines, if that makes sense. Not literally, of course. So they use that in a few really smart places, in my opinion, like using a limited color palette in general, but then there's more gradients to it than the NES could handle. So then it's more visually appealing and it's not confusing or overwhelming in certain areas like it could be on the NES. There's like more pixel count and colors on mid bosses and especially bosses, which I think is very smart because it helps the bosses to stand out and be way more daunting. There's like just like you get one, you're like, oh my god, what is this? And this thing is gonna murder me. You know, it's great. They do a really good job of presenting the bosses in that game. And then yeah, what else is there to say about it? It's just visually, it's great. It looks great. Perfect blend.
Yeah, the whole kind of game, like, it feels like, you're right that it could never be, because like you said, when you actually look deeper, you can tell that it's not. But like, it just feels like something that could have came out of, you know, a competitor to Castlevania at that very time. And then it also feels like the progression of Castlevania from those original games as well, because like it also opened up with like multiple ways to go, and like I forget the dying system, but I feel like it had better systems for when you actually died and more checkpoints, and it's more forgiving in that way. So like, I feel like it just takes a lot of that old school blend, but then also says we can sneakily put things in here that are from like, that are more modern, that people won't like notice because they're so used to it these days.
Yes,
obviously, if you compared the game side by side, you'd be like, oh, okay, there's definitely a big difference here of why I could go back and why I can play Bloodstained now and have so much fun, and yet send someone back to play Castlevania and be like extremely frustrated by the game, even though they're both fantastic games.
Yes, totally. I wanted to get exactly into that. They do so many of these like little like quality of life and very subtle changes that you wouldn't really notice unless you were looking for them, or if you were drawing comparisons, or if you're a video game idiot nerd like we are. The gameplay is very solid, of course, and you have 4 different characters and they all feel very different and have very different uses. There's multiple routes to take in every level, so that way it encourages replayability, and there's also some routes that you can only access with a certain character if they're not dead. And like, when one of your characters dies, like, you have to, you know, restart from the beginning of not the beginning of the level, but like the beginning of the screen or the previous screen or something, but you have those other characters that are still alive, so it is not as punishing, and it respects the player's time. Like, that is my favorite thing about video games when they get this right. Like, for example, if all your characters die, you don't have to restart the level all the way from the very beginning, but it does push you back kind of far to a checkpoint somewhere. It's just a perfect mixture of respecting the player's time and making death punishing, and I absolutely love that, because you need a good balance of that, right? Because otherwise you won't care if you die, and if it's the other way around, then like, you won't play the game, right? It's that theory of like flow, right, where it has to be the perfect balance, otherwise the player will be too disinterested, or they'll feel like it's too easy, that kind of thing. It just strikes the perfect mixture of those two things for me.
Exactly. So you finished the game, you didn't go back, because I finished the game a little while ago, but did you go back and continue to like play again from the start with all 4 characters from the start this time? Or did you just stop there? Like, that's because I got to the end and I was like, I would like to go back and play with it, and especially since it was such a short playthrough, I could go back, find the other paths and stuff like that, but I just kind of stopped at that stage.
Yeah, so can you start the game all over again with all 4 characters?
Yeah, like, I think that's the kind of... Yeah, I think that's kind of the idea. You finish the game, and like, because you don't get, like, it's in typical Castlevania fashion, I think it doesn't give you like the proper ending for just doing the game that way. I think there's something that you have to do to kind of get more out of the game, or more story, or more like, I don't know, closure or something like that. But I forget.
Interesting.
I'll have to dig deeper myself.
Yeah, I'll have to just start it back up, because I didn't think much of it. And just, you know, being a part of the site, I'm just always thinking like, I have to create content right now, you know, so I have to play a different game or whatever. So yeah, I'll have to turn it back on and try that out, because I didn't think much about that with the story, because it was very clearly a prequel story and it was very much like a bite-sized game. So I didn't think much of that with the ending. The ending's cool too, by the way. It makes me more interested to play the new Bloodstained that's going to be coming out sometime in the future. Who knows when?
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
I do want to say too.
You played...
Oh, sorry. I did want to say one last thing about this to people listening at home. Highly recommended, of course, whether you're like a true lover of classic Castlevania games that are pre-Symphony of the Night, or whether you are somebody who's like, I want to check this out. I want to see what these games were like because I never played them when I was younger or whatever. There is a casual mode where you don't get knocked back upon a hit, which is integral to the difficulty of the game. And there's unlimited continues. And if I remember right, I think those are the only changes for it for the casual mode. So it's still going to be difficult no matter what. And you're still going to experience like the core adventure in a way that the developers intended. So it's not like a super baby mode or something like that. Like the casual mode is still a good challenge. So I do recommend it to people who are like, I want to try out the real challenge, or whether they're like, I just want to like try it out a little bit kind of thing. I super recommend it.
I played on casual mode. I feel like we should get that out there. I totally played this through on casual mode. I didn't want to be punished all the time. Like I love playing those old Castlevania games, but to me there was certainly a period of time where I was like, I liked that challenge, and like when I went back to play this one, I was just like, oh, I don't know if I want to just be pushed back like that. So I'm just going to turn that off. I'm going to play through the game, and I'm just going to experience it for now.
So I'm a bit of a masochist. So I chose veteran mode, and I was fine with it actually. But I knew that if it got too hard for me, I was gonna have like this internal struggle, you know, a fated battle, if you will, and then like yell at myself like, no, you're gonna play veteran mode, and then the one person's gonna be like, no, you're casual mode. This is easy and it's much more respective of your time, and yeah.
Yeah, I definitely lost that battle. A battle that can win is we can battle our way through the news now, since we have so much news this week. We don't actually have that much news, but there's a couple of things that kind of came out of this week. First of all, Skyward Sword has possibly been teased by Aonuma. During the week, they had a a Zelda concert. And during the concert, Aonuma popped up and said, we know what you're thinking. It's Skyward Sword on Switch, right? What did you think of this when you first heard about this news about Skyward Sword kind of possibly coming to Switch?
Well, when I heard about it initially, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it'll surprise me if Skyward Sword doesn't get released on the Switch within the Switch's lifetime, in my opinion. So I was like, yeah.
I was kind of the same. Like I was like, I kind of expect it anyway. And then later on in the week, a spokesperson for Nintendo said, at this time, we have no plans to release the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on the Nintendo Switch. So, like that to me, that kind of seems like very much dousing the fire. Like you know. Yeah. Maybe Aonuma said something that he wasn't supposed to, or like who knows about what happened there. But like, to me, that doesn't read as like it's never happening. That just reads at this point we have nothing to declare about it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even look into it to see like what the actual words were in Japanese or anything. Just because, I mean, it's gonna happen one way or another. You know, like, I mean, Zelda is too big of a property that they would not re-release their games. You know, they've already done that with the previous releases, so yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all about this happening or not.
But like, at least he didn't turn up on stage and go, we know what you're thinking, Link's crossbow training, right?
yeah, and then I wish that, like, I don't know, like, I don't think this really, but I just kind of wish that the spokesperson was like, we have no plans to release this. Everybody hates this game. This game is terrible. Like that kind of, it's just something stupid like that. I would just love that. See, I am chaotic neutral or chaotic good.
You are.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Zelda, though. Like, everyone has their kind of favorite Zelda. Like, obviously, a lot of people's new one is Breath of the Wild. Some people kind of, like myself, are really into Wind Waker. You're obviously into the CDI games. But like, I feel like Skyward Sword is the most divisive of the Zelda games. Like, it's either you're hating on it or you're really loving it. And like, there's almost doesn't feel like the Zelda with the middle ground there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like, I did want to mention too, like, Aonuma said this, as we said, Aonuma said that like, we know what you're thinking, Skyward Sword on Switch, right? Like, this doesn't mean that like it was happening, first of all, happening anytime soon, or that it's even like happening yet. You know, he might have been at a meeting earlier during that day, and they're all sitting around having a drink, and they're just like, you know what we should do? We should do Skyward Sword for Switch. Like, wouldn't that make sense? Like, if we just release that, and everyone's like, yeah, and they started chatting about it, and then later on the day, he goes off to this concert, and then like he's like, oh, I know what you're thinking, Skyward Sword on Switch, right? And then the fans, like as fans do, just take it so far, like even though he might have just been like, you know, even though he might have just been like referring to it like, yeah, we'd like to do that, and then like I'd imagine him being that like the next morning he's eating his breakfast, he has his bowl of crunchy nut cornflakes or whatever he eats, and
as all Japanese people do eat cornflakes for breakfast.
Exactly, and he's flipping through his phone, and then he sees the news like possible Skyward Sword leak, and he's like, what? And like just flipping out about it because like he was just, you know, having a bit of a laugh with fans. Or not even a laugh, just like as in say like, yeah, that's something we'd like to do in the future, not to say like that's something we're doing now. And so like I feel like this is definitely something that, like you said, we're going to see in the future. It's gonna happen, like almost definitely, like the way that they've been releasing Zelda games, it's gonna happen at some point. But like the fact that he said it now doesn't mean that expecting January sneaky release is going to be Skyward Sword on Switch, you know?
Yeah. I really feel like though Aonuma's response to this, instead of being like, what? I think that he would be like, not this stupid fandom again with their you know, like I don't think that Aonuma would be very surprised by the overreaction of fans, especially like video game fans, and I want to say Nintendo fans are not Nintendo fans, but like there are fans within the Nintendo fandom that are so crazy, like everybody has, but I think that there's a bit higher percentage of them in the Nintendo fandom where like just nothing happens and suddenly like they're like, oh my god, this happening, and like I gotta hype myself up, and that way I can get let down super hard by whatever. Like, do you remember?
You're so right.
Like way earlier, I think this year, or maybe it was even like this time last year, Blizzard Activision uploaded a tweet with like a very short video of, I think, like a Diablo nightlight or something like that, and they flicked it on and off.
The light being switched on the wall socket type thing.
Yes, and then like people were like, "Oh my god, they just confirmed Diablo for the Switch!" And like the not ironic, but I guess ironic thing is that like it did eventually come out on the Switch, but that was not a teaser for the Switch at all. But it was just like, how are you crazy people doing this? Like, go back home.
See, this is the problem, is that like some of that type of stuff is on purpose, and because of that being on purpose, it turns everything that, like, especially in the gaming sphere, everything that happens becomes rampant speculation. And because like and that's the thing with gaming in general, is that like it's mostly consisted of fans, and so like, and especially when you're on the social medias or anything like that, what you're going to be seeing is the fans' takes away from this, and so anything that happens is a possible leak towards something, and so that's why it's so hard for, like, I can imagine it'd be hard for Aonuma in this situation, because to him, he might have just been like having a casual kind of jest with fans, or even just a chat with them, or, you know, something like that, and said something, and, you know, meant nothing big by it, but everything that you say in the gaming sphere gets taken super seriously, and that something could come of it, and so like that's why it's so hard to tell, you know, what this actually meant, and I mean, by all means, he could have gone up there with the purpose of, like, you know, maybe you had a couple of, what's a Japanese beer? A couple of them before getting up on stage.
Sapporo.
There you go. And for a couple of them before getting up, and then, like, you know, let something slip. But in the same breath, he might have just been like, this is something we'd like to do, and I'm just hinting at it.
So you just made me think of two things. One, I definitely want to sit down and have a beer with Aonuma. I think that he would be a ton of fun, and I would like to get him drunk enough to do the Kuko dance like he was doing when he was promoting Hyrule Warriors, if you remember that. That was that was my life for like an entire month. I just love that video. And the other thing that you bring up, where you said, like, you know, things get taken way too seriously. If it wasn't like somebody high ranking like Aonuma who had said something like this, if like a mid-level, not even executive, just like a manager at a branch had said something like this in public, then, I mean, depending on how it was taken within the company, they could be reprimanded for something like that. And it's because of people's like outrageous speculation. It's like, God, that's so unfair. But I mean, that's something I just made up in my head too. But it just,
oh, totally.
It's just like the outrageous reaction of fans and people blowing everything up and being so unrealistic and so irrational. Ugh.
Yeah, I would like, and if I'm sure if we look deep enough, we'd find stuff like this in the past of history of stuff like this happening with someone just like
Totally.
casually mentioning something and not actually meaning much by it, and it being taken too far, and someone being punished in that system because of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back on track
Right.
and talk about. I did want to actually mention, like, if it did come over to Switch,
Yeah.
how do you think they would actually handle the motion controls? Because obviously we got handheld mode, it makes it a bit difficult.
Right. So that's the big question, right? I think a lot of people, that's the first thing that they think of when they're like, okay, well, when this eventually does get remastered or whatever for the Switch or for whatever the next thing is, what are they going to do about the motion controls, right? So for me, I haven't workshopped this in my brain so much as I have thought about how it definitely needs options for the motion, which you could do with the Switch mode, the Joy-Con.
Yeah.
That was a callback to 2 episodes ago or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It also needs options for traditional button inputs, and I don't know how they would exactly do it, but like, I don't know. It's not too hard, I think, because when you think about it with Skyward Sword, even though you had like seemingly full range of motion, you really only attacked in so many directions, right? You attacked horizontally, vertically, so that's 2, and then you attacked the 2 diagonal versions. So there's really only 4 directions of attack that you do, right? And
Yeah.
I can't. They would have to like go through every enemy in the game and like every puzzle in the game just to make sure that it wouldn't interfere, or if they could cut something down. No pun intended. Yeah, I don't know. But the takeaway is that they definitely need it. They need those 2 options, because I'm not going to rebuy Skyward Sword if there's not traditional button inputs.
It's I feel like it's a bit of a weird ground, because like coming over to the Switch, you kind of need that handheld mode there, but taking away the motion controls also takes away what was so core to the game and like their vision for the game in the first place. So I don't know. I'd have to. It'd be one of those games that I'm sure that there's plenty of ways that you could eventually figure it out.
Yeah.
I guess we'll kind of just see what way they end up doing it in the end.
In addition to the motion control thing, though, like there's a lot of other, I don't know if I want to say issues, but like aspects of the game that a lot of people don't like, or rather I should just say are contentious among fans. And some of the things that I would like to see changed, because I think that if it gets like ported over, it needs to be more like an updated port or like slight remake kind of thing, rather than just a visual remaster with a few quality of life treatments. I would like to see like Skyloft, the sky, be reworked to be either a tad smaller or just have more efficient use of space when you're flying around in the sky. I want it to be like fun and exciting to explore rather than just like an annoying way of traveling around. And then the other thing that's also a big thing is Fi needs to chill out on the hand holding, right?
Totally.
Yeah, the game like could totally benefit, I think, from a option in the very beginning where it's like, is this your first time experiencing Skyward Sword? Yes, no, that kind of thing, or just something where Fi does not interrupt you all the time. And I would also like to see, like, because I'm a proponent of Fi. I know that's like an unpopular opinion for sure, but I do like Fi. It's just that I think people got bogged down by her constant interrupting, constant hand holding, that kind of thing. Because you could just be running around and be like, oh, what's that thing over there? I'm gonna walk toward it, and then like suddenly you stop. Suddenly she flies out, and then she's like, Muddy Madas, and has to tell you a whole bunch of garbage and a whole bunch of like wordy text, and you're like, oh, just let me explore, you know? And so if they didn't have all those interruptions, and if they had a little bit more characterization of Fi, I think that she would be appreciated a whole lot more among fans. Maybe like when you're walking around, like sort of like Warrior style in like a Warriors game, where like a little text box comes up and it's not taking up much screen real estate. She says something that's like just like some good endearing writing, or like something about your bond between the two of you, and just like establishing that bond. Just saying something
less, yeah,
that it's not super important, but something that just helps to establish the bond a little bit. And you still are in complete control. You're still walking around and everything. The game doesn't stop, but you can read that while you're walking somewhere, kind of thing. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I think that was always the biggest issue, and it's like just completely taking you out of the action, and just stopping you in general. I mean, we've seen other, like, you know, when they did the Wind Waker HD remaster, we've seen them make a lot of changes to stuff like big and small to that. So it's not like it's out of the realm of possibilities. I don't see them doing much to Skyloft. I'd love for them to do something to Skyloft, like you said, but I don't see them touching that as much. But
Either
I do see them.
but I'm just being a little hopeful.
Yeah, but something like Fire is something that like the speed sail. It would help you speed through the game a little bit more. I could see them changing that up a little bit. For now, if you want to see Skyward Sword, you can probably just watch someone play it on YouTube, which Nintendo will now allow you to do thanks to Nintendo's Creators Program being dropped.
Segue.
I know, it's terrible. So on December 30th, the end of this month, Nintendo is actually dropping the Nintendo's Creators Program, which only you kind of want me to explain a little bit. It's my takeaway from this.
Yeah. Because I don't know very much about the Creators Program. I know that like it was like you sign up and then Nintendo gets the revenue and then they pay you out 70 or 60% of that revenue, and it was widely disapproved of in the YouTube scene, and now it's widely celebrated that it's going away. It's kind of all I know. So you being a bit more of a YouTube and media manager, I'd like to hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah, so I don't know. This is a bit weird for me because I'm not actually part of the Creators Program.
Oh,
as funny as that sounds.
God.
Yeah, like, yeah, like, and this is why it's so strange to me is because like I haven't been a part of that program. And Nintendo's never come after any one of my videos. So to me, this feels like something that's been coming for a while. Like, I haven't been creating content for all that long. But to me, like, since I have been creating content, Nintendo's never come after me with anything like that. And so I don't think that, like, I definitely think this has been something that's been in the works for a while. But I don't think that they're just looking at punishing people who are making content for them anymore. I think they're now kind of looking at it more from the bigger picture, which they should have done from the start. They should have known that like people were supporting them from the start, but I'm kind of glad they're finally on board with this.
Yeah, totally agree. That was another aspect too that I wasn't sure about. I was like, is this an optional program? And if it's an optional program, why would you want to give away some of your revenue, right? It seems like it was like a mandatory program, like in name, but they weren't really enforcing it with a lot of regularity, like what's that word, the thing that you have to do when you have children, consistency. Yeah, it seemed like that because I mean the program only started in 2015, right? It's not even that old. And so during these 3-ish years, it's 2018 right now, isn't it? 2018? Yeah, 2018.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in this world. I got it going on. I might be a hot mess express, but I'm in this world. So like I don't know, were they really enforcing this? I don't know. I'd love to hear like if any of you guys that are listening, if you're like content creators on YouTube and you got any experience with this, I'd love to hear your opinion. So please do write into us.
Yeah, I'd love to hear people with like. I'd love to hear from people with more experience because as I said, like I just don't have much experience with this stuff. But my assumption is that it was a lot heavier from the start. It's like at the start when they really wanted this program to kind of be something.
Yeah, probably.
It was stifling people a lot. Like from reading through some of the actual rules in it, you couldn't even be part of this program unless you were over 18, which means that content creators under 18 weren't like basically allowed to make money off Nintendo videos, which to me seems like strange. Like I know. There's a lot of younger people who kind of take off with YouTube channels and do stuff like that, which I don't know whether, I don't really have an opinion on that type of stuff. I don't have anyone that I follow that's young on YouTube, but I don't think you should be stifled for doing so.
Yeah. You just brought up like, I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you. I can hold on to my thought. You go on. You go ahead. See, I'm nice.
You're nice, but I was literally ending my thought there, so continue.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll throw an insane twist your way and say that I just have really good perception. With the young people, how old am I? So you know how a lot of young YouTubers, they're doing like Minecraft videos, and well, now it's Fortnite, yes. Right? So back when Mario Maker came out, could that have been a thing? Like, I don't know if they were enforcing it then, because I mean, I was seeing a lot of Mario Maker videos on YouTube, but could Mario Maker have been more of a platform for like young creative types in doing the Minecraft thing, to do a Mario Maker kind of thing? You know where I'm going with that, right? I'm not articulating it very well at all.
No, like, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, like the Mario Maker videos definitely could have been something that took off a lot more. But that was something that was extremely streamable and showable from the start. So it was something that took off. But this program did have like, from what I hear, again, like it's really hard to talk about this when you're not expert, but from what I hear, this did have restrictions on things like streaming on YouTube and not allowing you to do stuff like that. And so like it would have caused a lot of those restrictions still to be in place.
Yeah.
I did hear a couple of people mention, I forget if it's on the website Aware or just talking about like this, not like that Nintendo is still kind of have a stranglehold over everything because of like the ROMs and stuff like that. But we have to kind of understand this is something completely different to what ROMs are. This is people who are creating videos, but this is still helping promote their brand, where ROMs is like, in a way, it does slightly promote their brand, but it's also damaging. And so that's where you got to understand that ROMs is much more damaging than the YouTube content creating stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. As much of a, I don't know if I want to say proponent I am of ROMs. I'm a proponent of like preserving video game history. And I think that ROMs are a part of that. But like the pure distribution of ROMs for people to download and play video games as opposed to buying them, that's stealing, right? Like, I mean, it's got more gradients than that. It's not as black and white as that. But, you know, some people do use it for the purpose of stealing. So ROMs are, I don't know, it's an apple orange kind of comparison there. You can't really compare the two.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the whole ROM thing at the moment, but like it's not like it's not like I wasn't big into ROMs when I was younger. It's not like I still don't, you know, try a ROM out every now and then so I can get an impression on a game that there's no other way to attain. So it's not like they're bad in that way, but
it's true.
It's still very muddy ground, you know?
Yeah, it's totally true. Same thing when I was a little bit younger. Like, of course, I had used ROMs before, and I was experiencing a whole bunch of games that like never came to the North American territory or something like that. And another example is certain games that like are not available to purchase legally right now, like Little Samson, for example, on the NES. That game, if you want to try and buy it, at least on eBay in the States, is well over $100. Like, it's tons of money, and that's if you want to buy a resale copy. That
and Nintendo's not even making, or whoever's not making money off that anyway.
No one's making money off of that. So then you're like, well, why don't I just download a ROM so I can play the game, right? So I get that logic a lot. I'm sort of on board with that logic, because it's like I want to give my money to the actual company. Like, if they can put it on some sort of virtual console or whatever, I want to give people my money and show them there's support and desire for this game. But there's literally no place for me to give you money except give somebody who's like a collector or whatever like hundreds of dollars just so I can play this little NES game. Like, I don't know. Not like I'm entitled to the experience of the video game. And see, now I'm going to the ROM thing. Look what I'm doing what I said I wasn't going to do and what you said you weren't going to do. All right, we're moving on, right? Let's do it.
Yeah, let me get you out of this ROM thing. I do want to go over a couple of the quick Q&As that and comments from that they had in this. So first of all, they made a statement saying, we encourage you to create videos that include your creative input and commentary. Videos and images that contain mere copies of Nintendo content without creative input or commentary are not permitted, which makes sense. They don't want you just uploading full playthroughs of games and things like that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, then people are just going to watch the full playthrough. They want you to be using this as a medium to promote yourself and promote them at the same time, not just as a way just to upload whatever their thing is.
Yeah, it's quite fair.
And like, and this to me is a big deal, because this makes a lot of sense as far as what I've been targeted from with Square Enix, in basically saying like Nintendo likes you to upload that, like, don't mind you uploading their stuff as long as you're putting your own commentary and putting your own spin on it and talking about it. Whereas, like, you know, people give Nintendo so much crap, and then a company like Square Enix will just be like, no, we don't want to talk to you. We don't want anything to do with you. We're not currently looking at taking more people on at the moment for promoting our brand. So please stop making videos about us.
Yeah. That's a huge bummer. I know Sony Pictures is big in being like the exact same way about doing takedown things on YouTube for their movies. Even though it's completely under fair use and whatever, and like the current situation with YouTube is like guilty until proven innocent, so your stuff gets taken down and then it doesn't come back up for a month, and then your monetization is all screwed up. So yeah, that's a problem.
I hate fair use. It's such a muddy ground, and it's just like nothing is known until it's taken to court, and no one can take it, like no one can justify the money to take it to court, and so it's always just a matter of, you know, someone just back down.
Yeah.
All right. Koei Tecmo is teasing a new game in more exciting news. So I kind of want you to take this one away from me. But before we do, basically what we know is there is a teaser site. It's coming to Switch, PS4 and PC. And they're announcing what it is on December 6th. So take it away, Oni.
So I'm going to put on my speculation goggles because we literally know nothing about this. Like, the only thing we truly know is that there's a website with a background of flames and then just like text in Japanese. And in Japanese says "Shikume no tatakai ga hajimaru," which means like the fated battle begins on December 6th. And so that's it. But what's interesting about it for me is that the phrase, the fated battle that they use the word shikume instead of unme, which is another word for destiny. Shikume is a bit of more uncommon and like more poignant word that I guess people use like in a more exaggerated situation. The difference between the two words is that shikume, the word that they're using, means like fate or destiny, but it's something that's like predefined and cannot be changed. So more like fate, I want to say. And then the other word that they're not using, unme, is destiny, but it's destiny that can be changed. For like all of the Fire Emblem fans that are listening, Crom often says, specifically in Fire Emblem Warriors actually, he often says, "Unme o kaeru," which means like we'll change our fate or something like that. Anyway, that phrase. Okay, I went a little too deep into that. Sorry. That phrase.
Oh, I love this. I love having you on because I get to get into these deep dives of stuff that like I just don't normally learn or know about.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, that's. I mean, I get super nerdy into it, but I think that it is sort of offering a point of view that you don't really hear in a lot of places, right? So hopefully our fans are appreciating it. If you hate it, please let me know. Tell me how much you hate hearing my voice. So anyway, that phrase, the fated battle. I was like, all right, I'm going to look into this because this is standing out. So I was looking into it on the the Googles, and I came up with two educated guesses on this. My first one and my strongest guess is Fatal Fury Warriors, or Fatal Fury something made by Koei Tecmo. Just guessing Warriors because Koei Tecmo. I say this because the first Fatal Fury game that released back in like 91, the full official title is Garo Densetsu Shikume no Tatakai. So Shikume no Tatakai, it's using the Fated Battle as like the subtitle of the title of the game. In the West, Fatal Fury was released as Fatal Fury King of Fighters, which is totally different to the Japanese title. So, you know, it makes perfect sense why this wouldn't really translate to the West. So that's why I'm looking super deep into the Japanese on this. And then this game got released like on everything. So that's my biggest guess. The other guess that I have is maybe a Fist of the North Star game, because apparently some pachinko slot game with the same title or something came out, the Shikume no Tatakai part. I don't know anything about pachinko or even how it works or anything. All I know is that it's insanely loud and bright and awful when you're trying to just walk past it to get to the supermarket. That's all I know about pachinko. But that's clearly a personal problem. So back on track. Apparently that's in one of those games. And so that makes it a bit of a contender. The only reason I say that, though, with that kind of weird flawed logic is because Koei Tecmo has made Fist of the North Star games before. And Fist of the North Star is pretty popular. It's getting more popular in the West with the rise in popularity of the Yakuza games. So we'll see. That's my flawed guess right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, what I would like, I'm going to jump straight back to your Warriors idea because it's obviously it's got to be something Warriors, surely. But I would like to see them do something along the lines of is it Fatal Fury?
Fatal Fury.
Now that was made by SNK, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's an SNK property. Just like with what's that called? The heroin drug frenzy.
Tag team, tag team frenzy.
Yeah. That one. That's
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is that like I would love for this to be a teaser of one of the groups of characters out of like a whole bunch of characters that could be playable in like an SNK Warriors game. I mean, like I'm feeling like they've gone a long way with a lot of their brands lately by having like the SNK Tag Team Frenzy. Then they've had the SNK Collection, which has come up recently. I would like to see them go one step further and like had this partnership with Koei Tecmo with actually making a SNK Warriors game. I think that would be kind of interesting. It'd help expand their characters. And like since SNK seems to be coming back in a pretty major way, I just combine major and pre.
Yeah, that was correct. Preager. In a preager way. That's the right word. You did it right. Good job.
I don't know how I managed that, but yeah. So in a pretty major way or a preager way, they're kind of coming back quite strong, but they're really relying heavily on their history, which it's wise for them to do because they do have a big history right back to the arcades. So I would love to see them kind of lean on that even further with a Warriors game and combine them all into like one universe, kind of the way that Zelda did by going through all of the Zelda universes and combining all those characters together. I think that'd be something really cool.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Warriors games. I know that some people do really hate them because the gameplay is a bit shallow, and I get it. But I just love killing a bunch of people with a whole bunch of like ridiculous flamboyant attacks, and it's just really, really relaxing. It just turns my brain off because it's low impact gameplay kind of thing. And then there's also some hard parts to it too, so you can sort of adjust it to how you want to play.
Exactly.
And it strikes a chord with my really young self, where I would watch like cartoons or something, or like anime or something that has like these big flamboyant attacks and like all these crazy visuals, and it just satisfies that urge that I have.
To me, they're so fun because, like, again, the giant kind of hack and slash nature of them, and just seeing these massive crowds of enemies kind of be taken down by, like you said, big flamboyant, ridiculous attacks. But like for me to get you really into one, it needs to be attached to something that I love, and that's why I'd like to see SNK kind of come back with one, and that's why I enjoyed Hyrule Warriors so much and Fire Emblem. It's because I can attach myself to those games and the characters in them, and just be like, this is cool because like, this is this world that I know, and it's more ridiculous and over the top than ever.
Yes, totally. So we're gonna know by this time next week, won't we? Because 12/6 is coming up soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll sure to catch up on the details next week because that falls on the same day as the Game Awards, so I'm sure that there's going to be something to do with that.
Oh, well, then it must be a pretty big announcement because I don't think that they would announce like something that people would be a bit ho-hum about. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm very
excited.
Strange
though. Like in the same way, like it's strange for it to come out on the same day as the Game Awards and not be part of it. But then why, like, would they have this teaser website and everything? It seems strange to kind of create that. You think that they would just lead it straight into the Game Awards as a surprise if it was going to be part of it. But I suppose we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, maybe it is like a full-on SNK Warriors. We'll know by next week. So tune into the podcast next week and we'll talk about it. And also, if I'm totally right about this Fatal Fury Warriors thing, I would love to hear comments and like people just high-fiving me like, yeah, you got it. You're so right. You're so good. But then if I'm totally wrong, I full-on expect people to be like, oh, you are so stupid. Like, why would you look so deep into this? Get in the corner. Feel free to die with your hat in your mouth kind of thing.
You realize you're one of those people that we were talking about earlier. You know, one of the crazy fan theories who has to look super deep into everything.
No, I'm not. Shut up.
All right, well, we have details on that coming up, but stuff that we already have details on is Killer Queen Black.
Yeah, this game looks so good.
So we're already running over time, so I'm only going to quickly touch on this one. Okay. But just to catch people up before we catch on what the new details are, this is basically a 2D arcade competitive multiplayer game. Yep. There's 2 teams of 8 players. Each team consists of 1 queen and 3 workers, and there are 3 ways to win. And the reason I'm catching up in this game because I'm really excited about it, and I want everyone to be on board with kind of what's actually happening in the game in the first place. So the ways to win are you either kill the queen 3 times. Once the queen has been knocked out for the opposing team 3 times, you win. Or you can collect the worker bees, or whatever you want to call them, can collect 12 eggs and take them back to your nest. Once you have 12 eggs in your nest, you win. And then the last way is there is a snail on the map. And if you ride, one of the workers can ride the snail. And if the snail makes it to the other side of the map, you win. And it's by watching just gameplay of people who have played this, because there actually used to be, this is an older arcade game, not old, like it's back in 2013, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was a 5v5 arcade game at that stage. And watching people play this, it's so hectic and looks so fun. And so, like, it's a type of game that if you do want to play this with other people, I suggest you get a bunch of 4 friends together, or even better, 8 friends, and just sit down and have a massacre through this, because that's going to be the best way you're going to be able to play it. Anyway, Odie.
Yeah. Any
opinions before I go into a little bit more into this?
Oh, absolutely. I think this game looks so good. I'm so hyped for it. Like you said, it was an arcade game before. I think actually even earlier than 2013. I think it was more like 2010 or 2011. It started as like an arcade cab in, I think, the Pacific Northwest or something of the States. And then it got a little bit bigger and it went into a couple more major cities in the States. Actually, I have a couple of friends who have played it many moons back in like maybe 2013 or so. It was like a friend's birthday party or something, and so they went to a barcade, and this game was there, and so there was a big group of them, and then they gravitated to this game because it was 4v4 or whatever it was, just a high number of players, and they raved and raved about the game back then. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then when they did the announcement of this game for Nintendo Switch and Steam, they were like reworking it and everything. I was like, no way, this is that game from all the way back then. Like, what a success story for this game, just to come out of just like a little arcade cab 8 years ago or whatever. I love it. It looks so good. It's got like tactics and teamwork from like sports games at its core, and then it's got like fighting to it, like a little whiff of Smash Bros. Even. It just looks so much fun, and I'm very hyped for it.
Now, I was really hyped for it, and then I got a chance to play this at PAX in Australia, and so like I was like, oh my god, I can't wait to actually because I heard it was going to be there. I can't wait to give this a go at PAX, and so it's on the floor. I went to go sit down and give it a go. And I was super disappointed. Not at the game. The game still looks really cool. But the PAX demo we had, for some reason, I don't know why, they sent us a build that just had one-on-one queen battles. And that's all you could do. There was no multiplayer. You couldn't have a whole bunch of... I know, which, like, it's terrible. Like, why... I don't understand why they even showed it. Like, it's like they needed something to show there. Because, like, they've had a complete build, or not a complete build, but a workable build of this game at other places. Like, this has been at E3 in the past. Yeah. And so, like, after I thought they were really winding up with this game by having, the original Direct showing it and then having it on at E3. And then I was like, and then PAX was coming up. I'm like, oh, yes, this is going to be so good. I'm going to finally get a chance to play it. And then to sit down and only show a one-on-one build, it kind of killed the hype around this game for everyone at PAX because no one was paying any attention to it. Anyone who did came away going, what is this? Like, it was literally just a queen on queen, kill the other queen 3 times, and then that's it, and then go back into another match. And it was so basic and so weird that they even decided to show this. I just couldn't understand why they did.
Yeah, that's a total bummer because that's like a totally different game right there.
Yeah, so like fortunately, like PAX Australia isn't that huge, so hopefully it didn't make that big an impression on that many people. But it's like, yeah, it was just such a bummer that's what they chose to show. Like, it just would have been better to fill it with something else and not show this at all than to show that there. Anyway, we did get some new details which can continue us on a hype train, apart from the disappointment train that I just got off. There's apparently voice chat, which, like, I put maybe question marks after this because, like, I don't know what the deal with this is because they showed the voice chat off, but I couldn't read anywhere to say that they said it was for Nintendo Switch because they could be showing the PC build as well and just mentioning that on there. So,
oh, really?
I don't know what the deal with the voice chat is. Yeah, like, it's just something that I was reading through it and, like, sure, it's probably confirmed and I probably missed something and I couldn't see it on there. But just from what I was glancing over, I don't want to say that there's voice chat in this and then 2 weeks later, like, someone come back and say, oh, there's not actually voice chat in this game. So I'm just putting that as a kind of asterisk above it, as I couldn't find anything to say that this is for the Switch version of the voice chat, although it probably is. Okay. So just... yeah, keep an asterisk over that one.
Gotcha.
The other things we got is emojis and alerts. Now, these would be really good for the people who don't use voice chat because... you can basically communicate with your team, like just, the usual thumbs up, thumb down, whatever it is, swearing when you're angry at someone or heart when they do something good. But you can also do alerts on the map, like as in if the snail is being rode. I'm guessing they will be bound to, because the thing is with the game is that if it's the same kind of thing from the arcade, there's literally only 2 buttons, which meant the control stick or the joystick in that case, and the button that did everything.
Yeah.
And so if this is the same thing, then there's going to be a lot of free buttons on there to do stuff like add the alerts. Like they could put one button alerts you for the snail, and whenever you see someone riding the snail, you can click that and alerts your team, even though they're not communicating via voice chat, that it shows something on the screen to show that someone on the snail. And so I think that's kind of clever to have because, again, not everyone wants to play with voice chat, and it still kind of makes this more playable on a console.
Right. And it's not just like, come here and booyah or whatever. Like, it's actually useful
exactly.
emotes.
Exactly. And the last thing, they revamped the Sword Warrior, which I don't really have any opinion on because I don't know what the revamp really changed all that much. But it's a bit of a change, another change from the arcade version, because this has, as I said, like taken several changes from it, like 5v5 to 4v4 and a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, it just kind of shows that they're going over everything with a fine-tooth comb and like reworking the whole game to be a console experience. So I'm so excited for this game.
Me too.
Yeah.
going to do it for this week because we're running way over time, and so we're not going to have any time for listener mail. But I do want to remind people, if they want to come and talk about Killer Queen back or anything else that's happened this week or last week or ever or in the future, make sure to send us an email to the email address that is... Only, what's the email address?
That is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
And I promise to remember the email address next week, which is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com. Now, before we go, what are you up to next week, Oni? What's going on? What are you working on?
Still plugging along on that fantastic Phantasy Star interview. It's like 30 pages long. It's crazy. It's full of awesome little details that you never knew about, stuff that people never knew about before. It's going to be great. It's probably going to come out a little bit later, in the middle of the month, I want to say. Oh yeah, because it's December. Going to come out in the middle of the month alongside the release of the game for Nintendo Switch. How about you?
Cool beans. I am probably working on... I might get Monster Boy during the week and work on doing something for that. And then obviously Smash Brothers is coming out later, which we should all be very excited for. And I don't think I'll have time to do anything but that before the next episode, but considering it comes out late in the week. But there'll be definitely something that I'll be working towards for that as well. Now, I'd just like to remind everyone, if you would like to disable tutorials, make sure to leave us a 5-star iTunes review.
Oh, you know you want that. You got to give us the iTunes review. Disable those tutorials. You know how to play. You know how it goes.
And to follow us, you can follow the website. Make sure to go there, which is nintendoeverything.com. The Twitter is nineverything, or at nineverything. I myself, at Nintendo Numbers. And Oni, where can people find you?
They can find me at Oni_Dino.
Cool. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week. For everything Nintendo, stay tuned to Nintendo Everything.
Bye.